This is World Business Report, and Russia's ruble slumps to a 16-month low against the dollar as the economy reels from Western sanctions. Also today, gas workers in Australia will vote on whether to strike, threatening a surge in prices across Europe and Asia. Well, hello there and welcome to World Business Report. I'm Lukwesa, Burak. And we are going to start in Russia, where the currency, the ruble, has fallen below 100 rubles to the dollar. This is the lowest it's been in 16 months. So this is just the latest slump, part of a steep decline, which has seen it drop nearly a third of its value this year. It has been facing pressure, of course, with imports rising faster than exports and also military spending growing due to that war in Ukraine. Let us discuss this further. Chris Weaver is the founding partner at Eurasia Consultants, macro advisory in Moscow, and joins us now. Welcome to the programme. Thank you for joining us. First off, how should we be interpreting this slide in the value?
Okay, it's you should not be looking at it in the same way as if there was a slide in a normally functioning economy or if a European economy. The ruble is entirely managed now by the central bank in conjunction with the finance ministry, and has been since we last saw the ruble collapse down to about 130 in March of last year. So the central bank's priority last year was to keep the ruble exchange rate high at around 60 because it was tackling inflation. But this year, because of the sanctions impact and because that has led to a big hit on the value of Russia's oil exports in particular, they have devalued the ruble in order to compensate for that fall in dollar terms. In other words, weaker ruble translating dollars into a higher ruble amount to balance the budget. That's been the priority this year. It doesn't reflect an imminent crisis. It doesn't reflect sort of a broad collapse in the economy. It's the result of the central bank managing the ruble, and arguably they've now gone too far the other side.
Well, Maxim Oreshkin is the economic advisor, and he's sort of at loggerheads, isn't he, with the Russian central bank. He's blaming loose or soft policy. What exactly does he mean by that?
Yeah, as you say, he is complaining that the ruble is now too weak. And I guess he is indirectly criticizing the central bank's actions with the finance ministry, essentially saying that they have mismanaged the conversion of export receipts since June, when this latest decline in the ruble started. But in terms of loose policy, we haven't seen much of an increase in, say, consumer lending. There's no real issue there. There's no big surge in any sort of investment or consumer activity. So I think what he's actually saying is that the central bank and the finance ministry are mismanaging this balance, and they need to bring the ruble higher because of the risk of inflation or the risk of a loss of confidence, which then could have broader economic implications in the autumn. So there's clear disagreement, as you say, in government over what should be done with the ruble.
OK, so let us just take one of the options. There are a few that have been discussed by analysts, and some people are saying that an interest rate hike, which possibly could come in, I think, on the 15th of December, that's when the next meeting is going to take place, is going to impact on economic growth. I mean, what would be the best path? Because I presume it's the regional economies that are going to be impacted by this rather than global.
Yes, it will be regional. So there is a strong correlation between the ruble and the currencies of, say, Central Asia and Caucasus countries. And so far, the currencies in those countries have been relatively stable, a lot more stable than we've seen in the past. But there's a lot of money that comes out of Russia by worker remittances or trade deals with these countries. So unless the ruble kind of stabilizes and rallies soon, then we probably will start to see weakness in the Kazakh tenge, the Uzbeki som, and other countries in the region. But in terms of what can be done, yes, we also expect the central bank will raise its policy rate at the next meeting in September. There is a concern that inflation will rise because of the weak ruble. It's still only about 6%. So, but nevertheless, they're keen to keep it in the high single figures rather than losing control of it. But really, as I said at the beginning, the ruble system is managed by the central bank and in cooperation with the big exporters and the finance ministry. industry. So I would expect that the central bank today is on the phone with those exporters, managing the conversion of foreign currency and the flow in and out of rubles. And they should be able to do that over the next couple of weeks. So as I say, it's not a normally functioning economy. Therefore, the same rules don't apply.
Chris Uefa, sorry for interrupting, just running out of time, joining us from Macro Advisory. Thank you very much. OK, to Australia now, where workers at some of the country's LNG plants, that is the producers of liquefied natural gas, are going to be deciding today if they go on strike, why, pay and employment rights. Well, now, this does matter because the plants together supply around 10% of the global LNG market. European gas prices, off the back of that, went up again. They did the same thing last week when there was just talk of possible strikes. Now, reliance on LNG has grown since the Russian war in Ukraine, especially in Europe, where pipeline gas supplies were cut. Now, earlier, I had a chat with Nitesh Shah, who is Head of Commodities and Macroeconomic Research at Wisdom Tree Europe, and he said that the impact of the potential strike action is significant.
The relative calm in the global natural gas markets has been broken by this threat of strikes in Australia. And it's largely because Europe has become much more reliant on liquefied natural gas after the sanctions placed on Russia. At the moment, European natural gas storage facilities are close to 90% full, so that does mitigate some of the worst parts of the risk. But supply and demand is so finely balanced in Europe that only a small amount of natural gas supplies coming off market has this massive ripple effect of bringing prices up, as you said, 40% on a single day last week.
And yet, prices, or rather demand in the Northern Hemisphere has effectively dropped, hasn't it? The concern, I suppose, is Asia and the fact that they will be sourcing out other spot supplies.
Yeah, so Asia is the largest importer of the Australian liquefied natural gas. So the strikes in Australia impact Asia a bit more. But in today's environment, whereas the European Union has been trying to wean itself off Russian dependency, there's a lot more of a fight for the molecules of natural gas. So Europe is in a lot more competition for every marginal unit of natural gas across the world. And that's why the prices have become a lot more volatile. We've got a lot more of an interconnected global gas market compared to, say, 2 years ago.
Where would those spot supplies come from? Say these strikes did take place, the likes of Asia, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, where would they be looking and competing if Europe is also impacted by this?
Well, the US is a very large exporter of liquefied natural gas, and its supplies have been growing. In fact, earlier on this year, one of its largest LNG facilities, Freeport LNG, was offline. Now that's back online now and is producing at in large quantities. So there is gas supplies from the US that's likely to make its way over to Asia as alongside the EU. And the EU has been building out its own storage capacities as well. So its storage, its ability to actually incrementally increase storage has improved as well.
Nitesh Shah there now from Mumbai to Bangkok and Jakarta. Motorbikes are the most popular form of personal transport across Asia. Cheap, convenient, but polluting. Well, one Taiwanese company believes it has a solution. Here's Rupert Wingfield-Hayes.
Here I am in Taiwan, and this little electric scooter may not look like anything revolutionary, but it is. It is a world first, and I'm going to show you why. There are 14 million motor scooters here in Taiwan, and they are very noisy and very dirty. So how do you get people to switch from their dirty petrol scooters to a clean electric one like this? Well, they have to be just as cheap and just as reliable.
There is no infrastructure for it to convert electric. And then the moment came and said, well, what about battery not included? What if you are able to actually sell the vehicle without the battery, reducing the cost of that vehicle by 30-40%?
So this is the really clever and unique thing about this system. When you buy one of these bikes, it doesn't have any battery in it, and that makes it cheap. Instead, you subscribe to the company's batteries, and when it gets low, you just come to a charging station like this one and switch it out for a fresh one. There are more than 10,000 of these charging stations across Taiwan, with more than 1 million of these batteries in them. And that should mean goodbye to range anxiety.
You know, if my vehicle has 100-kilometer range, I can only go 50 and then 50 back, which means that now you have a tether on your neck everywhere you go. That's not a solution. We're solving for range anxiety also at the same time, because you can just hop from point to point.
This could be the answer to zero emissions personal transport for many of Asia's huge megacities. And for this Taiwan startup, the next stop is India.
Rupert Wingfield-Hayes into the US now, where it's a big week for retail results, with the numbers due from some of America's biggest shops, giving us an opportunity to take the pulse of the US consumer. Michelle Fleury has all that for us. Hello. Hey, Michelle.
Hello, yes, we're expecting to hear from some of the big box retailers here in America, Walmart, Target and also Home Depot. And the reason all of this matters is because together consumers in America account for about 2/3 of US economic activity. Now, so far things have been looking pretty good. If you think about the blockbuster start for movies like Barbie, then you've got Taylor Swift's Era Tour, and you've got economists saying that the chances of a recession seem to be diminishing. And so all eyes now turn to what's happening to consumers that have really helped power the strength so far in the economy and helped produce higher growth really than expected so far. The problem is, if you think back to May, the last time many of these companies reported results, they started to show cracks, that consumers worn down by inflation were beginning to slow down their spending. And so I think also tomorrow when we get a US government report on retail sales, there's going to be a lot of focus to see, is that holding up? Are consumers simply slowing down, or are they beginning to hit the brakes?
Michelle, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, don't forget that you can get in touch with myself and also some of the team here at World Business Report on Twitter or X. I'm at Lukwesa Burak. More coming up at 4:30 British summertime.
B.2 News, bringing you different stories from across the UK.